Sapphire and Crystals was the first show that I had in a gallery space. So that I was just, totally excited and pumped up. And the first one in 1987 was right here in the Southside Community Arts Center. But as more people came on and it grew, it became not just Sapphire and Crystals, the exhibition, but Sapphire and Crystals, the group.
It was one of the rare opportunities, really, for African American women artists to have an opportunity and a venue to exhibit.
A lot of us as women had similar issues with accessibility, and even quite frankly, the idea of putting a show on solo, for example, is pretty overwhelming. So when you can come together with a dozen other people and we can share responsibilities. I mean, we produced catalogs, I think, for each show, which was a lot of work. Thank you, Juarez.
Really, exactly.
But those are important documents to have, and those are important opportunities for us to speak about our own narrative.
Sapphire and Crystals was our way as African American women to create our own venues, to create our own ways of getting our work out, because the galleries pull and look to male artists. And Marva brought all these women together to have this kind of discussion. How can we be able to have a voice out here much more? And then we evolved in creating installations. I think we were we were a lot of the the inspiration to creating more installation art, because early on Sapphire and Crystals created some kind of altar space that honored a different ancestor or a different idea.
Altars represent sacred space. And so wherever we were showing our artwork, to me, represented sacred space, because as many of our members have talked about, the art comes through us. It comes from spirit, and we all have that spiritual connection. I think that's why the sisterhood has worked so well over so many years, and I can actually say over at least 3 decades. The altar is one way for us to help establish sacred space, to bring a certain kind of energy into the gallery. It's also a way for us to honor those who've come before, our ancestors, and more recently, unfortunately, we've had to honor sister artists who have passed on, including the co-founder of Sapphire and Crystals, Marva Jolly.
I can remember some of the wonderful meetings that we would have at Marva's, either up in the condo or downstairs in her studio. But the kind of support that we gave each other was just, in my opinion, phenomenal. We helped each other grow. We learned from each other. Me, in particular, I felt I was the real rookie of the group. And I just felt a lot of love and support from the group that I probably would not have developed as an artist had it not been for Sapphire and Crystals, particularly since I am a self-taught artist.
As a child, I grew up in a household that I had a mother who belonged to social organizations. She belonged to the Chatterettes, so I chat a lot. She belonged to the Jonquils, and she belonged to a sorority. I grew up around groups of really incredible Black women who all had opinions, and they were all intelligent, and they were all movers and shakers in Chicago. So to be a part of Sapphire and Crystals, it was the same kind of feeling of sisterhood that I think my mother felt in the organizations that she was a part of. So not only do we get to show our work, but we get to engage with one another and our conversations grow. What we feel and think, sometimes we change one another. Sometimes we always grow with one another. And so it's an incredible thing. I don't know of it happening anywhere else in this country, let alone Chicago. And so it's important. It's important for that sisterhood.
If you look back at our history as a city, Black people have been a very strong vein in our creative history. If you look at the whole history of WPA and the Southside Community Arts Center and all those great artists who passed through there, like Margaret Burroughs, okay, I'm going to name the women, you know, say like Margaret Burroughs, Anna Tyler, people like that. And then if you look at the history of AfriCobra, it's been a good chunk of our contemporary and modern history in Chicago has a very strong African American component. And we really can't afford to lose any part of our creative history. And especially this one here, that even though it's not codified as a brick and mortar institution, it's still very much a virtual institution where young artists are still like, well, how can I join? How can I be a part of this? And I think that there's something very valuable in what we're doing here in this idea of grooming young women to pursue, you know, more expansive careers, to dare to go for gallery exposure, to dare to be seen outside of grandma's garage and, you know, little community bake sales and things, to really feel that you are a serious professional artist. And I don't necessarily think that they're going to get that anyplace else. You know, I mean, we're challenged as educators to try to get some of those skills into our students before they leave college, but that can still be a hit or miss proposition. And then what about those kids who don't get to go to college? You know, where are they going to get that? So we need Black women, and you need Black women artists. And to not have it there creates this sort of misguided notion that maybe we did not have a culture. And for us to have survived for 30 years means that we have, not just us as a collective, but Black women artists in general.
Sapphire and Crystals is important because it is one way of identifying female artists, African American artists, and it is a way for us to allow ourselves to be known out there in the greater community.
Some of the women in Sapphire and Crystals I had known before I ever did a show and admired them greatly. Some of the women I got to know after I started doing Sapphire and Crystals, I admire greatly. So whenever you get to be in the same space with people you admire, it only lifts you and makes you better.
I just like being with the group of women who are doing good artwork and are very happy with what they're doing, and the pieces, the work looks good together, and we're telling stories and telling a little bit about ourselves.
Sapphire and Crystals has allowed me to be more professional in the presentation of my work. It has given me the opportunity to move into other areas. Like many women would come on with suggestions on, let's do a show here. I have a space here. And so that allowed me to be able to show in different places, to grow in my work. And then just in terms of most of the shows had a theme. So that process of taking an idea that someone else had and coming up with how does that work within your soul and what comes out as a result of that. Sapphire and Crystals helped me to be a better artist and a better person.